Hello everybody and welcome to another video in the Student Exemplar series where I take a piece of work that's been sent to me by a student and show all of you the work and talk through it, what's good, what could be better, and we learn a lot in the process. Now, if you want your work featured in a video, email it to info@mrbruff.com. You can remain anonymous if you want to, or I can tell everybody who you are. It's completely up to you, but let's have a look at this answer. Sybil Birling is presented as an indifferent and condescending woman. Her feelings of social superiority and strength, along with the character of her husband, are central to a complete understanding of the play and Priestley's purpose for this play. She and her husband are symbolic of the social elite in Edwardian society and the farcical nature of its ruling class. So there's an introduction which is actually quite interesting because for the first 2.5 lines it felt like the student was writing about the characters if they're a real person. And one of the things to jump up higher marks in the exam is to make sure that you're aware the text is a construct of its author, its writer, the playwright here, and that they're using the text to get across ideas and themes. But by the second half of this introduction, that's very clear. Priestley begins by introducing Sybil Birling as successful and wealthy. It's evident through the stage directions, which describe the dining room, large suburban house, that she is wealthy and affluent, thus would be patronising to any person under her social standing, just like many upper-class citizens would have been at the time in 1912. The fact it is the very first characteristic of Mrs. Birling the audience learns of, suggesting the importance of money and capitalist ideals in her life, immediately presents her as rather greedy and materialistic, which is a sharp negative impression. Now this is an interesting paragraph because it analyses the stage direction, tells us a little bit about what that stage direction tells us about the character, and then makes a point that actually structurally that's important because the fact that this is one of the very first things we learn about Sybil Birling is really important, to create this negative first impression, and that then becomes structural analysis. If you remember, exam boards are very keen for students to write about drama as drama, to make it clear that it is different to a novel or a poem. There's been a lot of feedback from exam boards that often work just doesn't come across as if a student realises it's a different form. So analysis of stage directions is a really good way of analysing form, and I like the analysis of structure. I would probably have had a topic sentence, the first sentence of the paragraph, that said Priestley uses structure and form to present an immediately negative presentation or aspect of Mrs. Birling, just to make it very clear the devices I was going to be analysing. Rather than a topic sentence which writes about the character, I would write about what the writer did to present the character in that way, if that makes sense. Once Mrs. Birling's material success has been established, Priestley reveals that Sybil Birling is an elitist and cold woman who believes she's socially and morally superior to others, seemingly even her husband. Her first assertion is one of dominance over the maid Edna, as she boldly declares, "I'll ring when we want coffee." The adverbial phrase, "when we want coffee," shows command and power, as shown by the connotations of control in the adverb when. This is further reinforced by her exclamatory remarks when she tries to control her whole family: Arthur, Sheila, Eric. The constant use of punctuation such as question marks and exclamation marks shows her trying to assert dominance over everyone else. Most surprising is the remark to her husband, Arthur, which would not have been expressed by many women at the time. Perhaps Priestley here might be trying to suggest that though she has very conservative and capitalist ideology, she, like all people, has the opportunity to convert to socialism. Her sudden independence from her husband and her confident nature is evidence of socialist views and might be Priestley's subtle way of showing the audience the beauty of socialism. So this paragraph is quite interesting because I think for me, I see it in two different ways. I really like the beginning half of the paragraph, the very good language analysis, pretty much up to here. I think really good analysis of word class and punctuation. I like that. I think the next part about the Arthur which wouldn't have been expressed by many women at the time. This is another thought, and it's rushed, really. You have to be very careful when you're writing about context that you don't write in a sort of broad generalization which just says, oh, women weren't like that at the time. That bit needed a bit of further expansion. What is it that women weren't like? The fact that they would challenge their husbands, the fact that they would try to assert dominance over their husbands, something like that. The other thing is, the idea here is that perhaps she is being independent from her husband, and therefore it's linking to socialism. But the idea of Arthur with an exclamation mark, it needs to be expressed very clearly that what's being achieved there is this idea of independence from her husband. So I actually think this paragraph should have ended here, and this could have been another paragraph. Priestley later begins to reveal that Sybil Birling's self-confidence and arrogant nature has led her to ignorance and callousness. The way she treats Eva Smith and the manner which she talks about how Sybil's myopic view of the world, which is certainly incorrect. Sybil Birling immediately abhors the girl when they first meet because she says that her name is Mrs. Birling, a claim simply absurd for a girl in her position. This implies that Sybil sees her as a liar who would have been deceitful and stupid just to get some petty money, when really the only reason Eva Smith was there was because she had no welfare state in the country at the time. Sybil seemingly perceives the working class in a demonized perspective. She might have actually considered Eva Smith an absurd scrounger and subhuman with no moral code. Sybil's denial that any person from a lower class than her could possibly be of higher moral stand evokes contempt from the reader and fulfills Priestley's purpose of removing capitalism from society. So this is a mixed paragraph. There's some good ideas. I like almost all of it, but I think that this little bit here, let me just have a look. This bit is unnecessary. It's just retelling the story. It's just saying, explaining what this moment in the plot is all about, really. And again, there's a link to context and writer's theme that is just rushed a bit, really. This last sentence, that this could be Priestley's purpose of removing capitalism from society, actually needs further explanation. You can't just bolt on as a little bit at the end a link to the writer's ideas and themes. And we have to be careful when we're writing about a play to use the word audience rather than reader, even though we ourselves do actually read the text. Her heartless nature is further explored as she dismisses the fact that she might have been the cause of her potential daughter-in-law and the innocent child who would be Sybil's grandchild. After battling with Inspector and dropping her metaphorical walls, Sybil concludes, "I'm sorry she should have come to such a horrible end, but I accept no blame for it at all." Priestley uses a sentence that has two sentences that have a contrasting effect. The first suggesting guilt and grief with "I'm sorry," whilst the other simple sentence shows almost no mercy. The use of bathos with the Sybil's fake apology shows how Sybil views the death of someone insignificant only because they are of a lower social standing. By presenting Sybil Birling in this manner, Priestley shows the inhumane and psychopathic qualities that conservatism and the bourgeois culture bring about, thus repelling the audience from it. Now again, this is an interesting paragraph. It's a paragraph where there's something really good in the paragraph, but then some sort of opportunities missed, really, some kind of some moments where it could have been even better. I think I would have really structured this whole paragraph as being about structure, as being about sentence structure, the contrasting sentence structures reflecting how quickly she changes her mind, the long sentence that suggests perhaps she's having some doubts, but the short sentence reflecting how she quickly forgets that, and how this links to the inhumane nature. So it could have been, it's not a bad idea, but it could have been turned into a better one by being strongly linked to the idea of structure analysis. And you have to be careful as well, I think, not to use words like psychopathic. It's a little bit sort of over the top. It's not really the right sort of word to use in an analysis. Despite this, Priestley might have been trying to evoke some sympathy and pathos from the audience, which yet again shows the cruelty of capitalism and conservatism. Conservatism is seen as a core value of Sybil, especially in the quote, "When you're married, you'll realise," energy on their business. The adverbial phrase, "when you're married," suggests certainty and shows how Sybil Birling has been indoctrinated from birth into this farcical ideology, eliciting feelings of pity from the audience, as Sybil is unable to turn away from this lifestyle. Nonetheless, her actions are not justifiable because she was given another chance by the entrance of the inspector, which she didn't accept. So this is again a paragraph which has a very sophisticated idea. The adverbial phrase, the fact that she's indoctrinated, it's a farcical ideology, but the student is drifting into writing about the character as if they're a real person, rather than writing about how the character presents the writer's themes and ideas. So, Sybil is nothing more than a construct from Priestley to present these ideas, and there needs to be more clarity in the answer, which shows that it's not, this tells us this about Sybil, but the presentation of Sybil in this way tells us this about society. Overall, Sybil Birling is presented as a symbol for the extensive reach of capitalism and the heartless, cold nature to causes within people. In doing this, Priestley encourages the audience to be pushed away from the evils of capitalism and drawn into the more sublime ideology of socialism. So what do you think? Put a comment in the comments section. It's clearly a very strong answer. Just a few ways it could have been better, but everything is there for this to be a very good answer. That's what I like about this answer. That's why I chose it. That the student has got some great ideas, but there's just a couple of little tweaks that would make them all the more impressive.